Good morning friends, Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal and Adab. This is my 229th video. This will be again covering the CLA rules and how the GLR is being maintained. But in this video, I will be discussing some letters, correspondence by the department, and which clearly goes to prove that we Bungalow area does not come under the management of the military state officer or the defense state officer now. So how do we prove this? Let's go by the same rules which I just explained in my earlier video 228. Now what does section 9 of Cantonment Land Administration Rules says? It clearly speaks of management of land. So the management of land under section 9 of the Cantonment Land Administration Rules addresses the handling and governance of different classes of lands within cantonments. The rule defines how various types of lands are to be managed, whether by military state officer or the entities like cantonment boards. This analysis particularly focuses on the complexities surrounding the management of class B3 and B4 lands. Now, management of class A land is authoritatively to the MEO is tasked with this management, except where land is under immediate control of the military authorities as declared by the central government. The obligations of the MEO is the responsibility for the development and maintenance of resources, including the planting of trees and handling usufruct, fruits from the land, which is A land. So now management of B3 land goes to B3 and B4. Delegations are powered to the MEO as per Defense Department letter dated 4th May 1938. All class B3 and B4 lands not managed by the cantonment boards are entrusted to the MEO. Now we must chronologically read these letters. If somebody is there, please make a brief of these letters. Now authority is limitations. This designation is crucial because, as highlighted in various legal interpretations and instruction, the MEO is not inherently authorized to manage these lands without specific delegation, reinforcing that only through clear directives can an MEO manage these lands. So it clearly says, now bazaar area, central government instructions through multiple defense letters, for example, March 1942, December 1944, the management of B3 and B4 lands within the designated bazaar area is entrusted to the cantonment board. Now that letter was 1938, this is 42. So now, for example, now let's pick up Ambala Cantonment Bazaar area were formally recognized under starting from 1937 as per the CLA rules, signifying that lands were not previously categorized as such, underscoring a pivotal change in the land management. So prior to 1937 there was no civil area. So 1942, so 1937 to 1942, what was happening to this bazaar area, which was notified under Rule 3 in 1937? So friends, we need to understand how things were getting cobwebbed. So special cases and exemptions, specific exemptions came. Several categories of land, such as those held by military farms or used by brick farms, quarries or factories, are exempted from general MEO management and remain under the control of respective departments. So this is very clear. That means whether these lands which were brick lanes or what were they. So executives, orders and presumptions are not to be taken that way. So lands held by private person under past provisions or presumed to be held under previous codes like the Cantonment Code, what I mentioned in 1912, 1899, is a complex area that requires documents, evidence, or otherwise subject to presumption based on existing law. So friends, this is where we have to understand what was there in 1899. Whether bazaar areas were there, was any MEO there, so was any cantonment executive officer there, or it was a cantonment magistrate then? So please, this legal implication needs to be discussed. So the role of presumption in land comes up, of management. So presumingly lands which are grants, Rule 9 and other related provisions suggest that where documentation is lacking, presumption based on historical grants and orders like the GGO 179 of 1836 may be influxed or employed. Although this presumption must be legally sustained and often requires further notification or bylaws. So let's say if the GGO 179 or GGO 260 or GGO 9 of 1827, everything needs to be presumed here. That is being influxed on us. So friends, the role of General Land Register. How does the General Land Register come up? Every cantonment in the country has a special land officer of 1929, 28, 30, that when the GLR was being upgraded to the 1937 GLR, which may be called the Record of Rights under the Land Revenue, there was a special survey done in every cantonment. I have for 4-5 cantonments of these special reports. So historical keeping of GLR is an essential tool in managing cantonment lands. But there is an indication that records, particularly of Category 3 lands, may not have been maintained according to the prescribed rules. Why? Because every 5th year under Rule 5 of CLA 1925, it mandated the revisions of the GLR and ensuring that all changes in the land rights or interest are accurately documented. So are they there? So now it very clearly proves that B3 and B4 lands under Section 9 of the CLA rules is intricately structured, with the MEO playing a key role but under specific conditions. So this becomes very important. This classification and management responsibilities have evolved over the time, particularly with the formal establishments of the bazaar area in the late 1930s and early 1940s. This is 1937 CLA rules. Understanding these rules is critical for interpreting land ownership, management rights, and responsibilities within cantonments, exceptionally in cases involving historical presumption or exemptions. The nuanced legal frame demands careful examination of historical documents, government notifications, and consistent record-keeping records as evidenced by the GLR. So that is why I keep insisting, please dig your land record, please dig in your old records from the MEO or the Cantonment Board office to explain how certain lands are classified as private properties and do not come under the management of the military state officer or the defense state officer, or even the cantonment executive officer will need to be interpreted and connected to the rules and sections which I have been referring. There's a structural approach. How can we prove ourselves to be private? What is the definition of private property? With these rules in place, and how within these rules also the Britishers left up a space or a corner to prove ourselves. beginning by defining what constitutes private properties within the cantonment area, particularly those lands that fall outside the bazaar area and are registered under the TPA Act 1882, Section 54, 49, 107 and 123. So this purpose, if people can understand, which I am trying to explain, that we do not fall under the DO, MU or CO because we were category 3 lands, we were private lands, we were engulfed with the GLR maintenance. Nowhere the GLR has an authentication under the rules in 1925. Friends, wake up. So now Rule 9, under Rule 9(4), Management of Cantonment Board, how Cantonment Board was given lands which were notified for the bazaar area as per the notification under defense. So lands which were outside the bazaar area were influxed under Rule 9(3), which I just said. So here we again have these rules 9(5), which classifies land A, which is not under the TPA Act. So the General Land Register, which is in 1937 being maintained under Rule 10 and 45. So we need to understand these two rules. So friends, we need to understand that why Transfer of Properties Acts was applicable on us, and why Rule 42(2)(2) said of mechanism of 287 1924 Cantonment Act. So this clearly proves that we were private lands. That is why TPA Act's applicability and Cantonment Act 1924 clearly said that we were not grants. So sale of a grant is not possible. So friends, the conclusion what comes is that we have to reinforce that lands outside bazaar area were being registered by under the TPA Act. And since when I said 1801, 10, 25, 1877, 1866 Registrations Act. So the foundation of this entire GLR countering is we prove TPA Act, we prove chronologically our old registries which were given to the cantonment magistrate. 1864 he was made the sub-registrar, and none of the sale deeds of 1864 which was produced by Purushottam Das Tandon as well as Mr. Ghaswala's case in Pune 1911 when he brought forward his 1865 sale deed. So friends, please understand, let us not get rubbed away with people who have become consultants. We really need not just the GLR to be countered, we need to counter that because we were old grants, because we were covered under the TPA Act, because old grants were allowed to be sold, whether through the Board of Revenue Officers of 1802, because we were revenue-free grants. Friends, please understand. Thank you. Good day.